Detroitlions select Panay Sewell, tackle, Oregon.
All right. What's happening, everybody? It's a Thursday night, and we're going to be doing Mock Draft Monday on a Thursday this week. 4 days late, and of course, everybody else got their mock drafts in. Now it's time to finish mine. I only have time to do one round tonight. I wanted to do 3 rounds. I will do a couple of trades. Trades that I'm thinking are quite possible that they could happen, at least. 1 second here. I want to double check a couple things. How's everybody doing tonight? How many of your brackets are already busted? Everybody's busted? I'm sure they are. All right, I only had time to do two brackets. One I had Creighton, the other one I didn't. Thankfully, the one that I had Creighton in, it's fairly similar to the other one. Oh, let's see here. All right, how many people do we have in? All right, so you need to change the video resolution. The current resolution is blah, 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 which is not supported for this configuration. Why is YouTube saying that I'm having an issue? I didn't have an issue this morning. So why would there be an issue now? How does that make any sense? Unreal. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Of course I can't. There's no way I can fix that. We're live. I can't fix it when we're live. All right. Is there any issues on your guys' side? Any stuttering? Any skipping? Any problems? I think I need to go delete all my stream keys and just start over. Get rid of all of them. Yeah, everything looks good on my end. All right, we're going to keep rolling here. All right, so you guys give me your number one option here for the Detroit Lions in the first round. Who do you think the Lions are going to take? And have you given any consideration to Jalen Milroe? Remember what I said earlier about, 5 weeks ago? What did I say about Jalen Milroe? I said, you watch this guy climb up these boards, and I said that he might end up being the number one overall quarterback in this draft, where everybody said that he was a 3rd, 4th rounder. No chance in hell this guy's going to get drafted in the 1st round, let alone the 2nd round. What have we heard now this week? Everyone's on the Jalen Milroe bus. Well, if you just would have listened 6 weeks ago, I told you this kid's got it. The tape don't lie. I don't care about anything else but the tape mostly, especially with these college guys. And then I want to see that tape match up to their combine, workouts or pro day workouts. And Jalen Milroe set it on fire, running a 4.37. I think that was an unofficial 4.37. But you want to talk about an arm. That guy's got a cannon, an absolute cannon. So I'm excited to see what happens with this guy. But don't be surprised if the Lions draft him. Like, I'm not even kidding. Do not be surprised if the Lions somehow manufacture an extra pick. If a lot of teams pass on him, which I just don't see happening, it's between him and Jackson Dart, I think, is number 3 and number 4 to go in the 1st round at some point. So we'll see what happens. Oh, let's see. James Pierce Jr., please fall to 28. I'm not that big on James Pierce, Nick, but you are, which is okay. Dan Howard says Zabel or Donovan. Zabel, Donovan, or Jackson, if one of those three. Is that what you're saying? Craig Hogue wants Zabel. Is it Hogue or Hogg? Thumbs down on the Milrow. Yeah, I would be. Look, I wouldn't be surprised, but as long as they took care of business with the first couple of picks, I wouldn't be surprised. Donovan Jackson. I got you. Yeah, I like Donovan Jackson too. Just not in the first round. Just not in the first round. Let me open up this widget. YouTube is saying to open up a widget. Anybody know what a widget is? Tomato, tomato. All right, tomato, tomato. All right. Let's get it done. Let's just do it. No more small talk. Probably helpful if I'm on the right screen, huh? Okay. Can you guys see that okay? Should I make it a little bigger? I think we can go just a tad. You know what's real exciting about this time of year, man, is baseball. Like, I am ready to hear some cracks of some bats. I miss my kids playing, man. They're all growing up now. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I said it the other day. I don't even remember how we started the other day. And everything's changed anyway. I think I'm going to say it again for probably the fifth time in a row. I believe that the Tennessee Titans would be smart to trade back. I believe the Cleveland Browns would be smart to trade back. I believe that the New York Giants would be smart to trade back. If any one of those teams can trade back, they should do it. And I think that if one of those three teams does it, it's because someone is going to move up to either snag Abdul Carter or Cam Ward. I think that those are one of the two top choices that a team is going to try to move up for, which means they're going to have to make a play for number one or at a minimum number two. Depending if Tennessee stays, I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee takes a quarterback. I also wouldn't be surprised if they take Abdul Carter. So taking a look around the league, just about everybody right now has been saying that Cam Ward is going to become a Tennessee Titan. I tend to disagree with everybody. Some people have Shedeur Sanders at number one. Some people have Abdul Carter at number one. And I think that that's where I'm still going to stick. I think that I'm still going to stick with Abdul Carter right now at number one. I don't think that his issue with his foot or anything like that is going to cause a problem for him. So let's just do it. Let's just give Abdul Carter to the Tennessee Titans because they decided not to trade back. Now, the Browns, again, I don't necessarily believe that they're going to need a quarterback this year, right? Let's run through the Browns free agency transactions. We probably should have done it with the Titans too, but we get Spotrac open. We'll take a look at the Browns here for a moment. So the Browns have brought in a corner. They brought in Tevin Jenkins just today, which shout out to the Lions bringing in Rock Ya-Sin. There was another transaction today for the Lions too. So let me pause for a moment. They brought in Rock Ya-Sin. And they brought back Khalil Dorsey, which I thought he would come back as well. So two good moves by the Detroit Lions. They have now shored up that DB room. I think they're good to go now for the rest of free agency. I would be surprised if they really bring anybody back that they had on the roster from last year. There might be a couple more, but at this point, it's almost looking doubtful. We'll run through that tomorrow morning on the morning show. We're going to run through all of the free agency draft or all the free agency choices that they've made so far and who's left who's left for them to bring back. So Browns at number 2. They brought in Tony Brown, corner. They brought in DeAndre Carter, wide receiver. I mean, that's a nobody. They did try to shore up their offensive line. So they brought in Tevin Jenkins, Joel Bitonio. They also brought in Jack Conklin, or re-signed these guys to a restructure, right? Juan Thornhill, he's designated as a post-June 1 release right now at a safety. So, bringing in a guy for the Browns like Travis Hunter makes a lot of sense. It helps with the cornerback room. Also gives them an option as a wide receiver, as a dual player. They really haven't done a whole lot outside of trading Kenny Pickett. They re-signed and extended Myles Garrett. They have Deshaun Watson around, but he ain't going to play this year. So they're still hurting pretty badly for a quarterback. And I guess the question is, are the Browns willing... to bring in Carson Wentz right now, kind of bridge this season? There's been some talk about, that situation. I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but at any rate, if I'm the Browns, I'm not taking a quarterback. There's too many good players right now in this draft that it just doesn't make sense to take Cam Ward right now. I mean, why would you want to do that? It's dysfunction city in the Browns organization. Always has been. Shore up the rest of your team and take Travis Hunter makes a lot of sense. That's where I'm going with it. Remember, all this will change. My final is my final. When I get there, it'll all make sense. I promise. I'm not going to give all my nuggets away. I can't have people biting on my heels this year. I want to make sure that my final is a surprise so we can get a few right without anybody else getting them right. That's the goal, right? Play hide the weenie. All right, so next up, we've got the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants, I do expect to take a quarterback. I think it's crazy to even think that they're going to want to move up. There's been some conversation that they might want to move up to 2 or 1. I think that they're going to pay through the nose to do that. And why would you do that when you have 3 incredible options to hit this draft with at the beginning? Carter, Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter. You are guaranteed a lottery pick. Right? You're guaranteed one of the best football players to come out of this draft. And it gets even deeper than that, right? Mason Graham, McMillan. I mean, there's others that make a lot of sense here. Now, I'm looking at all of their free agency transactions here. And I don't really see a lot of work on the wide receiver room. I got to put all of my depth charts together. They have Tommy DeVito right now. The Giants are taking a quarterback. They don't have a choice. At least right now, they don't have a choice. Unless something happens over the next couple of weeks with another free agent, which, God forbid, it's Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have to take a quarterback. It's going to be Cam Ward. It only makes sense. At least right now. Let's see. Does anybody else agree with that? Well, Daniel Jeremiah says Cam Ward's off the board at 1. Shedeur Sanders goes number 3. That's funny. Shedeur Sanders is now getting conversation back in the top 5, which is nuts. Another guy, Band, says Shedeur Sanders at 3 since Cam Ward is gone. Jackson Dart at 3 to the Giants. I think that would be asinine. Like, trade back, New York. Like, don't settle for Jackson Dart at number 3. You got to trade back as far as you can. Matter of fact, give Brad Holmes a call. He would love to be at number 3. He would love it. So just about everybody else has a quarterback going to the Giants, which I tend to agree with. Makes a lot of sense. Makes too much sense. All right, Patriots. Where are the Patriots right now in free agency? All over the place. They have done an excellent job. They really did a great job with their coaching selections. Even yesterday, they brought in a linebacker, Jack Gibbons. They've been all over, man. I mean, inside linebacker, center, defensive tackle, safety, center, safety, guard. Joshua Dobbs they brought in on a 2-year, $8 million deal, so that's a bridge. Mac Hollins is signed. Milton Williams, they got him at 4 years, $104 million. Carlton Davis, so they locked up their cornerback room. Harold Landry, so they've got a good outside linebacker / defensive end. Really, the Patriots can kind of go anywhere right here. And I would say out of their biggest needs for the Patriots, offensive line, I think, is still a big problem for them. They got Garrett Bradbury as their center. That makes, good enough sense. They got Wes Schweitzer as a guard. I don't know that he's a great answer. They have another center in David Andrews that they released, obviously, before they got Bradbury. And then they also have another guard, Lester Cotton. Again, is he an answer? I don't think so. You might see a tackle go here as early as number 4, or you might see the Patriots drop back a little bit, which would also make a lot of sense. The fact that they've gone with the defensive coaches, though, and they brought in Milton Williams, I don't think that they're going to swing at Mason Graham. I really don't. I think that would be a mistake since you just signed an expensive guy. Now, from the roster roulette standpoint, at some point, you got to bring in another one. I think they're going to go offensive tackle. And it's not going to be Campbell. It's going to be Armand Membu. All right, let's get to the Jags. Once I get through the top 5, I'll jump into the chat. Jacksonville Jaguars. So they just brought in a left tackle, Fred Johnson. They brought in a right tackle, Cole Van Lanen, or they signed anyway. Chuma Edoga, another left tackle, a center, a guard. So I think the secret's out of the bag. They're not taking an offensive lineman in the first round. They've gone heavy in free agency to reshape their offensive line. They also brought in Diami Brown for a wide receiver. They've got Hunter Long as a tight end, Johnny Munt as a tight end. They brought in a safety. They brought in Nick Mullins as a quarterback to kind of help bridge their situation behind Lawrence. I think they made a massive mistake in signing Trevor Lawrence to that big deal. So they're set in the quarterback room. I don't see that being an issue for him here this early. I think running back is solid with Travis Etienne, or Etienne, whatever you say his last name. Tank Bigsby, I think he's going to have a big year this year. They have Brian Thomas Jr. for a wide receiver. They have Gabe Davis. They have Diami Brown, so they're pretty solid there. I think that if you look across the other side, at defensive tackle, they've got Josh Hines Allen at left defensive end. But maybe their left defensive tackle, Devon Hamilton, could probably use an upgrade. And that's why I think that they're either going to go wide receiver here and give Lawrence another option on this offense, even though they seem to be pretty good in the wide receiver room. Parker Washington as a backup, Diami Brown, Gabe Davis. I think they're pretty solid. I guess I would go here. Possible Ashton Genty flies off the board. I think it'd be a bit early for them. I think it's Mason Graham. I think that they try to shore up this defense. And even though it doesn't even show them needing really defensive line this early, I think it's Mason Graham. You can't walk away from Mason Graham. I think that would be the wrong message to send your team, that you're walking away from what should be the best defensive tackle in this draft. Man, we don't have anybody in here tonight. How's the stream? Is it still kicking? Hasn't failed yet? Melly Mel, I'm not sure why you can't rewind to the beginning. No clue. You know what? I can't either. That is weird. I don't know. YouTube's just on one this week, I guess. Partly my fault. New computer and everything. It's the little things that matter. All right, the Raiders. I think that if this one's anything different than a quarterback right now with Shedeur Sanders, I would be highly surprised. If Shedeur Sanders is still on the board, I think that this is where he goes. I think that the Raiders are going to try to move up. I think that, again, one of these teams in the top 3 or 4 are going to try to move back because they're going to realize the type of capital that they're going to be able to get by just moving back a little bit. I could see the Jets moving up to try to take somebody like Travis Hunter, but he's already off the board. If we look at the Raiders depth chart right now during free agency, obviously nothing is set in stone right now. They brought in outside linebacker, or signed anyway, Christian Ellis, Zach Carter, defensive tackle, Darnay Holmes, cornerback, Raheem Mostert, running back. They released their center. They released Gardner Minshew. They signed Eric Stokes, corner, inside linebacker, Landon Roberts, safety, Lonnie Johnson, Malcolm Kuntz. That's a big signing for them along the defensive line. So I would say they probably would stay away from defensive line early. They also signed Jeremy Chin in the safety room. Their safety room looks pretty set to me right now, at least early in the draft. Of course, they have Max Crosby. So I would say a defensive line is pretty solid, and I would say the defensive back room is pretty solid. I think it's wide receiver or running back here, and they don't have a corner, or they don't have a they don't have a quarterback outside of Geno Smith. So why would they take Shedeur Sanders? That's the question. They want Shedeur Sanders to be on this team to learn behind a vet like Geno for a season? Possibly. I wouldn't be totally out on that. Or maybe the Raiders can't move up and they don't have a big swing at Shedeur Sanders if that's the player that they want. But with all that said, the fact that they have Geno, they've already addressed the defensive line. I think that their offense is clearly the weakest link here. Clearly. They have Jackson Powers from last season as their center. They have Alex Kappa at left guard, Dylan Parham at right guard, DJ Glaze at right tackle, and Colton Miller at left tackle. I think it's either going to be McMillan or Genty that flies off the board right here. I don't see why it would be anybody else. Let's see what everybody else is saying here. All right, I see one person as Genty. That is, I don't know who this band guy is. Ashton Genty by Jeremiah. See, I think if Genty is there for the Bears, he's going to become a Bear, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Mason Graham. So one person has them still addressing the defensive line. That's interesting. Zierlein. Not sure who Zierlein is. I should probably know that name. Jelon Walker, edge / linebacker. Brooks. Bucky Brooks. Says McMillan. And see, that's kind of where my heart is. I think it's an offensive player, and I think that this is too good of a running back right here to pass up. Genty right now is a Raider by default, simply because of what happened in the beginning of this draft. All right, let's check out the chat here for a moment. Let's see. Dan Howard says Genty. Raiders got Geno. Yep. Crosby wants Shedeur. Yes, he does. I think that if Shedeur is willing to sit for a year, then it's a no-brainer, right? Bring him in. 1,000%. Geno's could be a bridge. What did Geno sign for a deal, though? Or is he on a deal? I don't remember. I can't remember everything. He's due $31 million for 25. Does he only have 1 year left? He does. Damn it! I shouldn't have taken Genty. Okay, well, we'll fix that in the next one. Shedeur Sanders, if he's still on the board, clearly he's gone right there. Maybe. All right, the Jets at pick 7. What have the Jets done here in free agency? They've done a lot. I think that Aaron Glenn's going to have a successful first season. I really do. They just brought in Derek Nottie. I was questioning, why didn't Brad Holmes bring in Derek Nottie? Cheap contract. Guy's got a ton of experience. I haven't heard of him ever being a locker room issue. Man, that would have been a nice plug and play kind of guy there. Right next to DJ Reader. All the Limas on the mend. Okay, so going back, they have Isaiah Oliver, corner. They signed a center. CJ Mosley is gone post-June 1 release. They brought in Jamin Davis, outside linebacker. It's a good pickup. I don't know who Stone Smart is, tight end. He's obviously a nobody. Austin McNamara, punter, big deal. Wide receiver Tyler Johnson, not a needle mover. Their running back, Kene Nwangwu, running back, not a needle mover. Derek Nottie, good signing. Brian Cowart, defensive tackle, not a needle mover. And then Jay Tufele, defensive tackle, not a needle mover for me either. So they've done a lot with bringing in, a lot of their own guys, but Jamian Sherwood was a big deal for them, keeping him as an inside linebacker. They also signed Justin Fields, so they're not in any rush to grab a quarterback right now. And then Brandon Stevens was also a good signing by them. And Andre Sisco and Tony Adams. I mean, the DB room is pretty solid. I think that the Jets are going to pass on a quarterback. I mean, clearly, if Shedeur Sanders is on the board right now, which he shouldn't be, if I was smart enough to send him to the Raiders, I don't think that they would take Shedeur. I really don't. If he was still on the board, I think that they would pass because they have Justin Fields right now. Then again, you bring in a guy like Shedeur with Justin Fields, and you kind of have the best of both worlds. You got a rookie that might be somebody, and then you have the wild card named Justin Fields. You just don't know what he's going to be. The question is Aaron Glenn in a rush? Because next year's draft class should be loaded for quarterbacks, at least in the first round, more so than this year. And if the Jets are going to do anything this year, I think they'll have a good season. Will they be better than, 9-8? Probably not. So they're still going to be picking probably in the top 15 next year. They will be able to navigate and move forward if they needed to grab a quarterback. Pass on the quarterback. You can't pass on somebody like J.D. Barron right now. And the fact that Aaron Glenn is a former NFL DB, he understands the quality of these guys and making sure that you have someone that you can start to build around. And with the rest of their depth chart, let's just take a peek at it real quick. Normally I have all this stuff in front of me, but I literally got home 5 minutes before I turned on my computer. When I look at the depth chart right now, they have Sauce Gardner, Andre Sisco, Tony Adams at free safety, Brandon Stevens at right corner, Michael Carter at nickelback. I mean, they're good with their starters. They got Quincy Williams as their slot Sam linebacker, Jamian Sherwood in the middle, Zaire Barnes as the will, Quinnen Williams at right defensive tackle, Derek Nottie is the incumbent, or he's the starter right now because nobody else really could jump in front of him at this point. Will McDonald, though, at left defensive end backup. I like that, but they still have Jermaine Johnson. Pretty good player. On the offensive side of the football, Justin Fields, Breece Hall. You could probably swing for a running back here. I mean, Breece is good, but Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and this Kene dude, I don't think that there's a lot behind him. They have Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. I mean, Alan Lazard's not great. Xavier Gibson, wide receiver, not great. So I think it's wide receiver or it's going to be DB. The fact that their DB room is, they spent a lot of resources. I'm going to go wide receiver here. McMillan. Let's see what everybody else was saying. Armand Membu, one analyst, Armand Membu. Another analyst says Jets move up to number 5 and take Travis Hunter. Man, if Travis Hunter's still on the board, absolutely. I mean, that's a no-brainer, and you do move up, and you do give whatever it costs to move up. Will Campbell grabbing an offensive lineman, that could make some sense too. It's funny, everyone's got a different pick. Will Campbell again. So two guys have offensive linemen. And Michael Williams going with the linebacker edge. And moving up to number 5, Shedeur Sanders. So all over the place, but I went with the wide receiver. All right, the Panthers. Now, according to PFF, they need a wide receiver, edge, and DB. Now, after free agency has passed us right now, let's see. Panthers. Carolina. All right, they've got David Moore as a wide receiver, Dan Chisena as a wide receiver, Adam Thielen as a wide receiver, Rico Dowdle at running back, Christian Roseboom at linebacker, Brady Christensen at center. Got our old guy Sam Martin punting the ball, Miles Sanders at running back, Bobby Brown at DT, Michael Jackson at corner, Deshaun Wharton at DT. That's a good signing. Patrick Jones still is playing at a high level, outside linebacker. They locked up J.C. Horn. Tommy Tremble at tight end. I think they overpaid for him. They brought in Austin Corbett, or re-signed him at center. Cade Mays at guard. They've done a pretty good job. I'd have to say the Panthers have done a really good job. Now, they have a quarterback that I don't necessarily believe in. Oh, let's see here. They got Andy Dalton behind Bryce Young. Jack Plummer's behind them? I didn't know that. You know, they could probably use an upgrade at wide receiver. I mean, Adam Thielen's old. Xavier Legette, this will be his second season. And then Jalen Coker. I don't even know who that is. What is he? A second season? This must be his second season. Nope, this will be his third season. Nope, this will be his second season. They could also use a wide receiver. But right now, I think you're going to see an edge or a linebacker probably come off the board here. Again, just looking at who they have behind some of these guys. So they have Josie Jewell, DJ Wonham, Mike Jackson, Trevin Wallace. They got Claudin Cherilus behind him, Christian Roseboom, Patrick Jones. And their linebacker room is pretty solid, actually. So they'd probably pass on that. On the edge, given the fact that this is a 3-4, they could use a bigger defensive end. And that individual... Oh, boy. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. You know what? I think that you're going to want to give Bryce a weapon here. Let's go with Luther Bird into the Panthers. Let's see what some of the other guys said. Mason Graham, if he's still on the board. Mason Graham again, if he's still on the board, of course. And Jalon Walker. You got a stacked linebacker room. I'd be surprised, but then again, I think smart teams try to bring in the best absolute player they can. And if you lose a good player, you lose a good player. It just happens. So I'm seeing a lot of Mason Graham. I'm seeing Jalon Walker. And let's go this last one over here. Michael Williams. So I'm the only idiot that took a wide receiver to give, Bryce Young another option on the offense because he doesn't really have anybody. He's got an old Thielen. I mean, that just I wouldn't want that. And they got a young guy in Xavier Legette who really didn't do anything last year. He struggled last year, big time. He has the ability. I mean, for the longest time, a lot of us were hoping that the Lions would take a swing at Legette. Didn't happen. All right, who do we have up next? We have the Saints. Just take a look at the Saints free agency here. Okay, so they just signed Godchaw yesterday, defensive tackle. Another defensive tackle, Cameron Peterson, they waived. Landon Young, left tackle, they brought in yesterday. Cam Jordan, he signed a 1-year, $6 million deal. Jonah Williams, defensive end, signed a 1-year deal. Valus Jones, wide receiver, signed a 1-year deal. Will Clapp at center. Isaac Yiadom at corner. Jack Stoll at tight end. Justin Reed at safety. That's a good signing. Juwan Johnson at tight end. Man, he locked it in at 3 years, $30 million. So when we start talking about Sam Laporta, $10 million is the floor for Sam Laporta. They still have Tyrann Matthews still playing, so he signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. And then Cesar Ruiz will be their starting guard more than likely. And then Carl Granderson at defensive end. They also have Chase Young at defensive end. So they did a pretty good job. I think the Saints did an excellent job, honestly, navigating. It was a rough start for them here, right? But they got Chris Olave, wide receiver. They have Kevin Austin Jr. I'm not impressed by that. Rashid Shaheed, I am impressed with him. Talis Fuaga last year, they brought him in. Nick Saldiveri, they brought him in 2 years ago. Eric McCoy at center. I think that he's obviously going to have some competition. Cesar Ruiz was a center, I believe, at one point. That's why I'm thinking he might challenge. He might challenge at center. I'm sorry, Cesar Ruiz was a guard. My apology. Was a guard, left guard. Wrong Ruiz. Right tackle Trevor Penning, brought in 2022. And then tight end Foster Moreau. And then they just brought in Jack Stoll? Who did they just bring in again? Juwan Johnson. 3 years, $10 million. I would expect that he's going to be the starter opposite of Foster Moreau. Derek Carr, quarterback. Spencer Rattler backing him up, so I think that they're probably solid there. I mean, at some point, they're clearly going to want to get a better quarterback and get younger. Alvin Kamara still toting the rock. Kendre Miller behind him, and then it's a pretty decent running back room to start with. You can go anywhere with the Saints. So what are their biggest needs? Running back, wide receiver, defensive line is what the sheet says. I could see a wide receiver for sure. There are so many good options right now. You could get a top-tier tight end and give Derek Carr another option on the offense. You could go linebacker, Jalon Walker right here. You could go edge, potentially. And I think that's probably where I'm going to go. I'm going to look at the linebacker room. Jahad Campbell makes a lot of sense. Let me look at their depth chart one more time. Yeah, they could use some competition there. I think it's Jahad Campbell. He becomes a Saint. Their linebacker room is just not super impressive. They got Pete Werner. They got Demario Davis. They got Isaac Yiadom, Nefi Sewell, DeMarco Jackson, Rico Payton, a bunch of no-names after that. I think the linebacker makes a ton of sense right there. Oh, boy. Lost that love and feeling. What's going on here? Steve K says, did a mock earlier in PFF and let PFF pick the Lions. They picked the damn halfback. I don't know who started mocking this Omarion Hampton to the Lions, but they need to stop. They need to stop that stuff. Like, I'm not surprised if the Lions take a, running back later in the draft, but not early. There's no way. I would freak out if that happened. I don't freak out much, but I would freak out if that happened. All right, Chicago. I think Chicago's going to take a punter and a kicker with both their picks. Quite honestly. I can't. F the Bears, right? F the Bears. Everybody drop F the Bears in the chat. F the Bears. F the Bears. All right, so who did the Bears bring in? They brought in Devin Duvernay at wide receiver. They had a lot of action in the offseason, right? Bringing in a pretty good offensive line, pretty good defensive line. So they started off by releasing Gerald Everett, releasing DeMarcus Walker. They traded for Jonah Jackson. They brought in Joe Tooney and traded for him. They also brought in Durham Smithy, tight end. They got Agbonga Bemijia. Oh, my God. Amon O. We're just going to roll with that. Amon O, outside linebacker. They brought in a corner in Josh Blackwell. They brought in a DT and Chris Williams. They brought in another center, really good center, and Drew Dahlman. I mean, the dude is an absolute freak. Dahlman is just massive. I think he makes Frank Ragnow look small, and Frank is a big dude. They brought in Deo Odeingbo, phenomenal pickup. Grady Jarrett on defensive tackle, right? Tarvarius Moore at safety. I mean, that's a no-namer. Scott Daly at long snapper. Well, he used to be with us. So they did a really good job. A really good job. But I think that if offensive line is fairly settled for them right now, do you want to still stack behind that and get younger? Probably not. I think that they're going to want to give Caleb Williams another weapon, but they have DJ Moore, right? They have Rome Odunze, and then they have Olamide Zacchaeus. I don't know that I'm extremely impressed with that. Devin Duvernay will compete. I think that they could use another wide receiver and a smaller wide receiver at that. I think their offensive line is solid. I definitely feel like they could use another tight end. Right now they have 5 on the roster. But Cole Kmet he's good. He's still young, right? He's only 5 years into the league. But behind them, they don't have a ton. So they could go tight end. They could go slot receiver, or they could go big receiver because DJ Moore, well, he's just been around for a while. But then you look at their running back room, right? DeAndre Swift. How much longer are you going to deal with DeAndre Swift? But you can't go running back right here, can you? I mean, are you really going to take Omarion Hampton with the fact that I've already given up Ashton Genty? I think the Bears are going to probably try to make a move and make sure that they don't lose out on Ashton Genty. But Omarion Hampton, if they take him at 10, so be it. I think that Cam Scatabo is probably a better running back that you can get in the second round. And they wouldn't have to do anything to get Cam. They can just let him fall. But if you're looking at wide receiver, if you're looking at tight end, Tyler Warren makes a ton of sense here. A blocking tight end, which we know that Ben Johnson wants a blocking tight end. In his style of offense, you have to have a blocking tight end when you're running all this outside zone stuff. So a blocking tight end makes a ton of sense. But let's look at wide receiver. Matthew Golden. My goodness. Alec Iomanor would be incredible in this offense that Ben Johnson is about to put together. I think that there's a real opportunity that Emeka Egbuka could be gone here. And now you've stacked that wide receiver room for the next 5 years. On the defensive side of the football, though, they have Montez Sweat, Gervon Dexter. Gervon was one of my favorites, man, coming out of that draft last year or 2 years ago. But they brought in Grady Jarrett, so their tackle, their right defensive end is solid. Left defensive end is solid. Left defensive tackle is solid. Linebacker room is solid. I mean, Tyreek Stevens at left corner, he's good. Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard at safety positions, they're good. Jalen Johnson, of course, is good. Kyler Gordon at nickel is good. The whole defense is good. Like, it's insanity when you look what's behind them, too. So where do you go? Where do you go if you're the Bears? What do you do? Well, you have a shot at taking in Jahdae Barron, right? So then that means you won't have to pay Jalen Johnson again, but he's locked up for a while. Tyreek Stevenson, he's going to be around for the next couple of years. So let's scratch that one off the books. What about Malachi Starks? So Kevin Byard, I don't know what his contract is, but let's just say that. Let me look at it. See, normally I do all this work beforehand, but I don't have my sheet in front of me. Nothing. Kevin Byard contract. Let's take a look. So he's on a 2-year, $15 million deal that he signed. So this is his last season. We talk roster roulette like I do. It's Malachi Starks. I don't like the pick because I think a receiver makes a lot more sense. But when you look at the only position that doesn't have a long-term solution, there you go. Malachi Starks, especially with Genty off the board. Okay, let's keep moving. Why is it? It says my stream status is poor. I can't fix it. So if it's bad, I apologize. I don't have any drop frames. Oh, I do have drop frames. I have a ton of drop frames. All right, we're going to have to move it along. All right, San Francisco. I think that it isn't a stress to think that the 49ers would like to prepare for life after Trent Williams. I think that makes sense. He turns 37 in July, so finding an offensive tackle early in this draft would make a lot of sense for them. I don't think that Will Campbell's going to be the one. I think that Josh Simmons and Calvin Banks would be the most sense here. Even Gray Zabel. I'm not sure why Gray Zabel has slipped in this draft, and I'm not sure when North Dakota State's pro day is. I didn't look at the list today. But the 49ers have 2 more picks inside the top 100. And they can really they could really do whatever they want at this point. But I think that if you pass on the future of Trent Williams right now, you might be able to get one in the second round at pick 43 that is still pretty solid. I don't think Josh Connerly's going to slip. And I think Gray Zabel all these guys are going to be gone. And these guys right here, I mean, this is the cream of the crop. After this, it really starts to slip off. Donovan Jackson might be the best one. Jonas Savay Savane is still pretty good, but I'd have to question arm length right now and take a look at who's got the arms, who doesn't. So I think that offensive tackle makes sense. Also, what does PFF say? Guard, tackle, defensive line, and corner. So offensive line, right? That's what it sounds like. They could take a corner here, and that might make the most sense for them. I think that we need to take a look at what they've done in free agency real quick. Okay, so they brought in safety, Saran Neal. They brought in... Oh, wow. Trey Brown, corner. Jason Pinnock, corner. They signed another safety. Then they claimed Trey Tomlinson, corner. They don't have a good corner right now. I think that the 49ers are in trouble. Like, they're in this semi-rebuild, it seems like. So right now they have Trey Brown and Renardo Green. Renardo Green had a decent year last year. Trey Brown, I'm not so sure that he's going to be the answer, right? He's got 4 seasons in Seattle. And I believe now he is with the Niners. Not so sure on that. I'm going to go J.D. Barron here. J.D.'s got to come off the board. San Francisco makes a lot of sense. Cowboys. How about them Cowgirls? Here we go. See what they've done this year. Dante Fowler Jr. is a great pickup, defensive end. Miles Sanders at running back. I mean, yeah. Paris Campbell at wide receiver. That's a nothing burger. Dakota Shepley at center. Israel Makumo corner. I mean, everything that I see that they've done, I mean, outside of Jack Sanborn, who I still appreciate the hell out of at outside linebacker, he's just, I mean, these are not needle movers for Dallas. You know, you can clearly see a team that doesn't have money because they spent so much money on their quarterback. They're up against it too. And just looking at, they converted $45 million of Dak Prescott's salary into a signing bonus to create some cap space. And they did the same thing with CeeDee Lamb. You're going to see the same thing happen in Detroit next year, most likely. The biggest move they did this year was Osa O at DT. I think overall, when you look at the Cowboys depth chart, tell me somebody they don't need. Start with the offensive line. Tyler Guyton, good pickup last year. Tyler Smith at left guard. Cooper Beebe at center, good pickup. Robert Jones at right guard, and then Terrence Steele at right tackle. They could probably use an upgrade on the offensive line. More likely at guard, I think, than tackle. They could also use a wide receiver. See, I had them taking a running back had Genty been available. They might spring for an Omarion Hampton. I think it's way too early. I think the Cowboys could be trade partners. I think that they may want to stack some picks. You know, right now they have a boatload of picks late. They have 3 fairly early, 12, 44, and 76. And then they got a bunch of late picks, kind of like the Lions. I mean, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have over 10 picks this year. But you package up a lot of those picks, I think the Cowboys are going to want to move forward. And at the same time, they might want to move back and then move forward. Yeah, a lot of people have them taking Ashton Genty. I think that's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. Okay. Dak needs a weapon, right? Right now he has Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders and Deuce Vaughn at the running back position. I think that a running back does make sense, but I don't think Omarion Hampton at, pick 12 makes a lot of sense. CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. Jalen Tolbert, he doesn't move the needle for me. Kavonte Turpin doesn't move the needle for me. Jonathan Mingo, great option last year. I don't see him doing a whole lot. I think that when you look at the wide receiver room, I think that there's more questions than answers. Emeka Egbuka, 6'1", 205, good size. Matthew Golden, 6 foot, 195, good size. And then Alec Iomanor, if the Cowboys have a good scout team, this is the guy that they would take out of Stanford, 1,000%. But let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that they don't. I think their defense is better than their offense right now. And I think that it's going to be Emeka Egbuka going to the Cowboys. All right. This one's simple for me. The next one, for the Dolphins, there is no doubt in my mind that they are taking Josh Simmons. They need to protect Tua. Then you got the Colts. This one is simple to me. I think that tight end is the most important thing. I think that guard is also a great option for them. The fact that we haven't had a ton of edge rushers go, though, right now, let's take a look at what they've done in free agency before I go ahead and just give them an edge or an offensive tackle. Good to get myself up to speed here. Colts. Here we go. All right, so they brought in David Long at corner. They brought in Valentine at corner. They brought in Nevin Gallimore at defensive end. That's it's nothing. Khalil Herbert at running back. Okay. Danny Pinter at center. They brought another Wesley French in at center, so they clearly need some help at center possibly. Bringing in a lot of centers. Let's see who's on the depth chart. Their starting center right now. Oh, Tanner Bortolini. They brought him in last year. I actually like him. He'll be fine. Never mind. He'll be fine. They brought in Daniel Jones at quarterback, so they don't need a quarterback that's going to be competing with Richardson. I don't think Richardson's happy about that. They got Cameron Bynum at free safety. That's a big move. They didn't really do a whole lot. They didn't do a whole lot at all. When you look at their roster, Kwity Paye at left defensive end, Grover Stewart at tackle, DeForest Buckner at tackle, Samson Ekubam at right defensive end, Layatu Latu is a backup. That's a good backup for the left defensive end. I think their linebacker room needs some help. I think their DB room is okay to wait on in the first round. So I think that the answer to me would be tight end, wide receiver, linebacker. Tight end, wide receiver, linebacker. So the answer is, man, James Pierce as an edge, but I think that he's going to play a little bit more outside. He could probably play off-ball linebacker as well. Falcons. Falcons, 1546 and 118, 218. Man, the Falcons really did some funny things last year, didn't they? Yeah, Will Campbell on the board. You know why, Dan? Will Campbell on the board because of his arm length. I do not believe that Will Campbell is going to be in the top 2 or 3 tackles off the board. Matter of fact, let me pull up his arm length. 32 and 5/8 inch arms. So he's not even 33 inch arms. I think if a team needs a guard, I think Will Campbell is now a guard at the next level. At least that's my way of thinking. If you don't have at least 33 and a half inch arms, how can you become a tackle in this league where these defensive ends are getting bigger, longer, and stronger? There's no way you're going to be able to fight these guys off. You got to get long. Otherwise, you're going to lose your battles. All right, so where was I with the Colts? Or I'm sorry, with the Falcons. I'm a bird cruising? What does that mean? Wingspan of 34 inches? You want to know Will Campbell's wingspan? Oh, let's see. Oh, that's terrible. This is absolutely terrible. I don't have my sheet open, so I don't have all the stuff in front of me, but all right, so Will Campbell has 32 and 5/8 inch arms, right? Let me educate everyone real quick. One more time on why I do what I do. So if he is 6'5", that means he's 77 inches tall. His wingspan is 77.18. So we're going to go 77.18 divided by 77. His APE score is barely 1.0, which your wingspan as a tackle needs to be at least 1.04. I know that doesn't sound like a lot of numbers, but you look at the average for tackles that actually play well, and their wingspan is over 1.06, or their APE score is over 1.06. Their arm length is over 33 and 3/4 inches on average for some of the best tackles in the NFL. Those are the numbers. If you can't get long with a wingspan and you can't get long with just an arm, You're not going to hold up against these edge rushers. You're not. You're going to get beaten all day long because you got short arm syndrome. I'm curious what my arm length is now. Now I'm going to have to measure it tonight and my wingspan, see if I stack up at all. All right, Falcons. Let's see what they did this year. So they brought in a tight end, a nobody, Jamal Agnew, wide receiver. I mean, come on, really? Jordan Fuller at safety. Yeah, I don't see anybody that they've really upgraded with at all in free agency. I don't see one person that they've, I mean, maybe Leonard Floyd at defensive end and maybe Mike Hughes at corner. But even that, Mike Hughes is, I mean, he's getting paid as a veteran. They lost Grady Jarrett. They brought in a good left tackle, though, in Jake Matthews. And that's about it. Looking at their depth chart, got Penix, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod III, and then Jamal Agnew and Kadero Hodge behind them at wide receiver. Could definitely use a wide receiver. They have Kyle Pitts at tight end. He's decent, right? Jake Matthews at left tackle. They could use another tight end, though. So tight end, wide receiver number 3. They could definitely use an upgrade here at possibly left guard. On the defensive side of the football, Morgan Fox at left defensive end. You could use an upgrade there. They brought in Brandon Dorloose last year, who's right now slotted as a third string backup. Nose tackle, they only have one at David Onimienta or whatever. They got Rook Ororo last year, great pickup. Leonard Floyd, left inside linebacker, Caden Ellis. Divine Diablo at right inside linebacker. I mean, he's just not great. Left corner is A.J. Taylor, or Terrell. Strong safety, Jordan Fuller. Jesse Bates at free safety. And Mike Hughes at right corner. And then nickelback Clark Phillips. So I think the defensive side of the football, they could definitely benefit from a wide receiver, for sure. They could benefit from having a tight end behind Kyle Pitts, but I would say that would be my third option. I think the edge makes a lot of sense, and defensive tackle makes a lot of sense. So for me, I think it's going to end up being, if Mike Green passes all of his BS, he makes a lot of sense here. Their center, Ryan Newsill. I don't even know who this guy is. Terrible grades last year. Not very good. But you know what? He only allowed 1 sack. I don't think that there's a center right now that you're going to take this early. You can get a center in the 2nd or 3rd round. Okay. Falcons could use a corner. Possibly. And I think they could use an edge too. I think edge makes a lot of sense, honestly. Yeah, edge makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I think that the Falcons are probably going to look at Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, Donovan Iziraku, and or Will Johnson. Or you could see Trey Amos jump up right here. Hell, you could even see Demetrius Knight crack the top 15. My pick for the Falcons is going to be Jelon Walker. All right, Falcons. Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to go defensive line here. I think this one's an easy pick. I think this one's a really easy pick. I think defensive line makes the most sense for them. I really like Walter Nolan. I think he's probably the most polished of all the defensive linemen in this draft. I think that I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised at just how ready he is day one. Offensive line makes some sense too. They could use a guard, so you could see. I mean, you could see. Honestly, you could see. Let me get my guards tackles up. You could see Gray Zabel go here. I think. You could see Will Campbell go here simply because of his shorter arms. They could try to convert him into a guard. And the same thing with Gray Zabel is he's flexible. Other guys like Calvin Banks, Josh Connerly, I don't think that they're as flexible. Donovan Jackson, I don't think they're as flexible to go inside to play guard. I'm going to go Will Campbell here, or I'm going to go defensive line. And if I were to go to defensive line right now, I think that Kenneth Grant, Darius Alexander, or Walter Nolan make a ton of sense. I think Darius had a really good combine. I don't know if he's had a pro day yet, but I'm going to go all the way down to Walter Nolan, Ole Miss. But I could see them taking Will Campbell there. Bengals, same thing. Guard, defensive line, linebacker. I just don't know how much longer you're going to let Will Campbell slip. If you can turn him into a guard, I think it makes a ton of sense here for the Bengals. Now the Seattle Seahawks. Center, guard, edge. I think Mike Green probably fits. I think it fits very well. I think that if they're looking for another guard, that's going to be Gray Zabel. And if they're looking for a center, they're going to take that at pick 50, 52, or 82. I think that makes more sense for them. But I'm going to go Mike Green, assuming he gets his act together. For the Tampa Bay Bucks, I mean, they clearly need defense, and they're going to go defense. The question is, do they go edge? Do they go linebacker? Do they go DB? Just like it says here on PFF. I think you're going to see a run of edge right now. I think that this is where they're all going to start flying off the board. And, oh, man. Who do we have left for linebackers or edge at this position draft? Demetrius Knight makes a ton of sense here. Long arms. The dude is super versatile. I think that he makes a ton of sense here for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Same thing with Donovan Ezraku. I think that he's going to be a Tampa Bay Buck. All right, so this is where I have the Lions making a trade. I think this makes a ton of sense. So we've got a trade.
Detroitlions select.
We don't know who the Lions are going to select yet. But we are going to trade with the Denver Broncos. Where's the Lions? Here we go. Pick 28. So we're going to go pick 28 for pick 20. I would love to keep 28, though. I don't think that the Broncos are going to roll for it because they obviously need picks. So pick 28 for pick 20. And the Lions are going to end up sending... Oh, man, they're not biting on this, are they? I got to pull up my sheet. What is it going to cost? Okay, so if we go pick 28, it's worth $660. Pick 20 is worth $850. So we got to climb 200 points and then double it. We got to climb 400 points at a minimum. If the Lions give up a third round pick next year, we'll call that pick 100. Pick 100 is only worth 100 points. So not great. Still got to climb 300 points, right? And you could potentially see I think pick 130. That really doesn't help. It really doesn't help the Broncos. I don't want to see the Lions lose pick 102. I think moving up is crazy to lose these kind of draft assets. I got to get my sheet up. One sec. Okay, draft day trades in the past. Oh, man. Give me 1 second here. All right, it's going to be pick 28. You know what? I think that this is what the Lions could possibly do. Now, you can call me crazy. Let's just say the Lions keep 28. They give up next year's round 1. And then they give up this year's round 2 and a round 3 from next year. So a 1, a 2, and a 3 for pick 20. But they're only giving up round 2 this year to stack 20 and 28. I think the Broncos would take that. I think that that is way overvalued. So you're going pick 100, pick 60, and pick 28. And if I look at the trade value chart, pick 60 is worth 300, right? Pick 28 is worth 660, so that's 960. And then pick 100 is worth 100, so that's 1060. And pick 28 is worth 850. So you're giving them a 20%-ish increase in value, but now your Lions are picking 20 and 28. And when we talk about what the Lions really need this season, what is it? Right? How many players do we legit need? 3, 4 at the most? I think it's 3. I think that we need 3 really good football players. I think that trading back, I think that trading back makes more sense, but I wanted to do one trade up tonight because the other option is trading Kirby right here. But I think the Broncos just brought in a safety, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just go back and check what the Broncos did because I'm almost positive they just brought in a safety, which kind of ruined my draft day trade. Yeah, they brought in Hufanga. 3 years, $40 million. So that may have helped Brad Holmes in his negotiations with Kirby that Hufanga only got, what is that, $13 million a year? That may have helped, but I think it's, at the end of the day, I think Kirby's going to get paid. So Lions are on the clock at pick 20, and they have the pick of the litter right now, right? You have some really good defensive linemen. You have Michael Williams off the edge. You've got Shamar Stewart off the edge. The question is, who makes the most sense? Who makes the most sense at edge right now? Who are you guys taking? If you had pick 20 right now, and you have all these football players available, who are you taking? So if I'm looking at Michael Williams, he has 10.25-inch hands. He's 6'5" and an eighth or so, 260 pounds. He's got 34 3/8-inch arms. His APE score is 107. I don't know what his 40 and all that is because he hasn't run yet. So I have no idea where he's going to project overall. Shamar Stewart, we have way more information on him. So I mean, he's elite of elite of elite in his agility and speed. He's just raw, right? He's raw with his ability on the field. I feel like his production was low because I don't think the Texas A&M really was all about sacks as they were more about maintaining gap integrity and trying to stall out the run game more so. Being smart football players, not super aggressive. When they were aggressive, it worked, but I think more often than not, they were just trying to stay in their zone. Ezra Rocco, I think, already gave up, so he's out. So Michael Williams makes a lot of sense. I think that he has more experience. I mean, clearly, pull up his stats real quick. So last year, he only had 5 sacks. He's been averaging about 5 sacks a year. Shamar Stewart, pretty much the same thing. He just has more experience. I mean, in one of the best leagues in all of college. So I think that helps. But I think that the sky is so high in Shamar Stewart, you can't go wrong with either one of those picks, especially when you're picking 8 picks later and you still have all of these massive athletes on the board. How can you go wrong? Demetrius Knight, my goodness, this guy is impressive. He's super impressive. Where is he on my board here? Why don't I see him? He's not on my board. Or I'm blind today. I must be blind. Control F it. Oh, not on my board. All right, I don't know what I did there. Who you guys picking? I'm going to look at the chat right now. Who you guys got? You got Scourton will be there at 28. Yep, he would be. Show the edges. All right, here we go. There you go. Can you see that? So you have Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, Nick Scourton, Landon Jackson, Princely Umenamian, Brady Swinson, JT Tuimalu. I mean, some of these guys, look, I mean, Jack Sawyer's dropping back, like I expected. You got Gray Zabel. That's Trace's guy. Who was your comp for Garrett? That was Shamar Stewart. Michael Williams would be the pick of what is there, says Brent Lighton. Williams says Orner UVM dad. One Major Pain says Nick Scorton. I did my crack move, not Will, by the way. I'm not following you, Jay Cruzen. Do the Lions double dip at edge? I mean, as deep as we've gone in this free agency period, do you think that they're going to double dip? I don't think so. I think they're going to grab one. I think they'll grab a defensive tackle. So do you want the guy of the future in Shamar Stewart? 6'6", 290. It was his playing weight, but he measured in at 267. So he dropped, 20 pounds-ish or so for the combine, or Texas A&M really inflated his weight. He's young. He's extremely athletic. He's got a quick first step. I mean, you cannot deny his measurables. You can't deny his agility. I mean, 131-inch broad, a 40-inch vert, that's pop. His wingspan, by the way, his APE score, 1.10, one of the largest coming into this draft. He has the second biggest APE score. The next one, Donovan Ezeuaraku. That's why I was high on him 6 weeks ago, and nobody believed me. Nobody even really understood who Donovan was. And now everybody loves the kid. I knew who Donovan was back then, and I still wish the Lions could pick him up somehow. It's just like I'm blinded by how much talent is really here. Like, there is so much talent in this draft. It's hard to imagine that you're not going to see 8 of these guys go in the first round. But then again, we don't know these guys like these NFL teams do. We don't have access like they do. Yet. I have more access, just haven't been able to use it yet. Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon still on the board, Darius Alexander, TJ Sanders, Tyleek Williams. I really liked his work Shamar Turner, I'm not as high on. I really like Joshua Farmer. So if we're looking for a defensive lineman, defensive tackle, you can get Joshua Farmer, later in this draft. Probably not at 102, but you could probably get Joshua Farmer, and that's an amazing pickup later on in this draft too. So I think the answer is edge at, this first pick. I also feel like if the Lions were to make that move with Kirby Joseph and trade him, then obviously that changes things. Because then you got to pick up 2 players with that trade somehow. This one's tough. I need to see the Texas A&M pro days. Right? I got to see it. I do know Shamar Stewart I have numbers for. Right? I do have numbers for him. I don't have numbers for Mykel Williams. I don't have numbers for Nick Scorton as far as agility. The only numbers that I have in my head is everything that they did in the testing at combine, day that was not that didn't involve the 40, the 10-yard, the vert, all the agility stuff. I'm rolling Shamar Stewart. Sorry, I got to. I have to. And it's no slight off of Nick Scourton. I love Nick Scourton and what he presents. I think that you can't go wrong here because the Lions are so deep that even if Shamar Stewart ends up being a rotational player for year one, he's going to be just fine. I think that Nick Scourton is going to be a guy that would step on the field and really command to be a starter. But maybe we don't really need that this year. Maybe we just need a really good rotational player that you can develop into year 2 that might end up being that shutdown defensive end opposite of Aiden, which I think both of these guys could be, Nick and Shamar and Mykel Williams. But remember, we're picking 8 picks later. So Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could use just about everything, including a quarterback. I think that if they took Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe here, I would not be surprised at all. I also think that they would be a good trade partner with the Lions to move back on. I think the defensive tackle is a great option here. I think the edge is a great option here. It's really hard to figure out what the Steelers are going to do. No clue. Let's take a look at their depth chart real quick. So offense, they've got Mason Rudolph at quarterback. What a joke. Jalen Warren at running back. They need a running back. DK Metcalf at wide receiver. George Pickens at wide receiver. Calvin Austin at wide receiver. Pat Freiermuth at tight end. Darnell Washington at tight end. Connor Haywood at tight end. They're good at tight end. Broderick Jones at left tackle. Sumelo at left guard. Zach Frazier, solid center. Mason McCormick, solid right guard from last year. And then Troy Fontenot. Their offensive line is good. If anything, left tackle Broderick Jones could use an upgrade, but not in the first round. I think their offensive set, except for quarterback. Defensive end, Loudermilk, definitely needs an upgrade. Keanu Benton at nose tackle, he's good. Cameron Hayward obviously is Cameron Hayward. TJ Watt at the will, Patrick Queen at the left inside, Malik Harrison at the right inside, and Alex Highsmith out at the Sam. They've got Slay at left corner. They got Deshaun Elliott at strong safety, Minka Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter. They're pretty good, man. They can go pretty much anywhere they want to go. I think the left defensive end probably makes the most sense here for them, or defensive tackle, and quarterback. But they pick at 83. Let's expect that the Steelers are probably going to move back up to make something happen to grab a quarterback, or they're just hoping that, someone is going to fall, or they're going to limp through this year with Mason Rudolph. I mean, my goodness, Mason Rudolph. I just don't think they could take a quarterback. I think that would be stupid to take a quarterback over any one of these football players. There is not a quarterback right now that is good enough for me to pass on all of these football players. Just no way. There's just no way. Especially being a defensive team. I mean, this Isaiah Loudermilk, I don't even really know who this guy is. I just know he didn't have any stats last year, really, at all. And the last few years, he's had 1 sack his entire career. He is not the answer. So I think that they're going to end up taking a guy by the name of Michael Williams. All right, how about the Bolts? Bolts, they could use defensive line, yeah. And I'm not going to try to pull any punches here. Like, it is what it is. Whoever the Lions get at 28, they get at 28. They could use a receiver. Possibly, right? All right, on the offensive, well, that's not the right one. Hold on. There we go. Okay, they have Justin Herbert, they have Najee Harris, they have Ladd McConkey, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston. I mean, that's a good start. They got Will Dissly at tight end. They could use a tight end. They have Scott Matlock at fullback. Why? Left tackle, Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, center, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton at right guard, and Tyler McClellan at right tackle. Left defensive end, they have Scott Matlock. They have Odio Ogbonia at nose tackle. Deshaun Hand at right defensive end. So I think that they could use an upgrade right there at defensive line. Tui Piloto at the will. They have Henley, Perryman, and Khalil Mack in the linebacker room. Left corner, Dante Jackson, Derwin James. Although they could definitely use upgrades in the defensive back room as well. So DB, I think, is important. I think that their defensive line is important. And I think the tight end is important. Does Kenneth Grant rejoin Harbaugh? Possibly. Possibly. Does Colston Loveland head out to rekindle his relationship with Harbaugh? Possibly. But when you look at a guy by the name of Khalil Mack, how much longer is he going to play? Right? He's been in the league over 10 years now. He's 34 years old. There is no way in the world that I would pass on a guy like Demetrius Knight. I wouldn't pass on a guy like, I mean, you could leave their offensive line alone, right? I wouldn't pass on the tight end in Tyler Warren or Colston. So, and then obviously corner. Too many options. Just too many options. This is where BPA helps, because when you put your guys in order of who's best and you rank them vertically, I think that it helps you not make a mistake. Man. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to roll with. They could use a running back too. That's what's crazy. Okay. Answer is Kenneth Grant. Defensive line. Yeah, that may not be the most important need for them immediately, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Green Bay Packers need a wide receiver, edge, and corner. I honestly do not remember what they did in free agency. Let's take a look. I don't think they did a ton. They don't usually do a ton. Yeah, they didn't. They brought in McCole Hardman. They brought in Nate Hobbs. They brought in a guard. They brought in a kicker. And they brought in an outside linebacker. So Nate Hobbs, they spent some money. The guard, they spent some money. So Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and then behind them, McCole Hardman, Bo Melton, and Dontavian Wicks in the wide receiver room. Wide receiver room's good. Doesn't mean that they can't go for an upgrade. They brought in 2 tight ends just a couple of seasons ago. I think that their offensive line is okay. They could still use an upgrade here on the offensive line. I don't know that they're going to waste a pick this early on their offensive line. I doubt it. Kenny Clark's good. Rashawn Gary's good. Quay Walker, he's good. Edrin Cooper's good. Isaiah McDuffie. Jair Alexander. So there's been a lot of conversation about Jair Alexander, and I think that you could see a corner go here. Will Johnson is still on the board, even though I'm not really high on this guy. He could go here. I think Trey Amos is a much better corner, obviously more prototypical size. I do not see Trey really slipping out of the first round. I don't know why they're saying wide receiver for the Packers. Like, their wide receiver room's pretty good. I think corner makes more sense. And I think the edge makes more sense, to be honest with you. Both. Take your pick, right? Throw a dart at the dartboard. I've even seen some of these guys. Let me look what Jeremiah put. Some of these guys have even put an offensive tackle here. Maxwell Hairston, cornerback. I don't see Maxwell jumping Trey. And I don't see Will Johnson. I may not even see him go in the first round. I'm going to go Trey Amos here. He's a hell of a football player. For the Vikings, running back, defensive line, DB, according to PFF, on my list, I had a safety. I had them taking a safety here. And you got that Nick Emenawari, which I would love to see end up in Detroit, especially given the situation with Kirby. But if they sign Kirby to an extension before the draft, then I think that tells us they're not going to take a safety in the draft, at least not early. Man, Vikings. They could use a corner. They could definitely use a DB. They could use a corner. Okay. With all the defensive lines still available here, let's take a look at their depth chart. Ooh. So J.J. McCarthy obviously is the only quarterback on the roster. Obviously the Vikings are going to have to do something. They're probably going to draft at least one quarterback in this draft at some point, probably at 97 or 139. They only have 4 picks, so they've got to be extremely smart right now. They could be a trade option with the Lions. I mean, let's be honest. If they could snag a couple of extra picks in this draft and move back to 28 and the Lions can jump up to 24, that'd be great. I just, for some reason, don't see it happening. I don't think the Vikings are going to make that mistake. I think that they could use a tight end. TJ Hawkinson's only getting older and more expensive. You definitely want to make sure that your offensive line is good. They brought in Will Fries, so there's a good move. They have Jonathan Allen, Harrison Phillips, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Greenard, Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith, Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, they went all out on defense this year again. So defense be damned, even though there's some really good football players. If they're going to go defense, I think with the amount of money that they spend on this line, they're not going to go edge. I think that they would go DB. But if you look at the offensive side of the football, I don't think that they need another wide receiver right now. You could take a running back to stack behind Aaron Jones, but they just brought in Jordan Mason, so that doesn't make any sense. I think the answer is right here with Tyler Warren. And you know what? I shouldn't have done that. It probably is more so Colston Loveland if JJ's going to argue to bring this guy back in the room, right? Even though Tyler Warren makes a hell of a lot more sense because of the type of football player he is and more of a blocking tight end. And you already have TJ. So now you have one that does one thing and TJ does the other. Next year you can find a different one. I think they take a tight end. Why is Johnson falling? Will Johnson? Well, if you're a Michigan fan, you hate to see it, right? The reason why is simple. He's got short arms. Short arms. And he's falling on a lot of boards, matter of fact. And I've been saying it for a few weeks. Once I saw his arm length, I'm like, nope, I'm out. But when I look at, I mean, a lot of mock drafts, I seen him go like in the mid-20s. I've seen him go as high as, let me just take a look. Yeah, I've seen him go in the mid-teens, 16, 17, and then in the mid-20s. I'm just not high on the guy. I'm not going to follow suit with everybody else. I believe what I believe. He might end up going in the end of the first round, or in the first round, but I think it's a mistake. He's got the intangibles, right? I mean, he's a good football player, but the arm length just scared me a little bit to take him that high when there's other players that, other guys that I feel are just as good and they're just not mocked as high. People get tunnel vision all the time. They get trapped. I don't get trapped. I have no relationship with these people. So, no emotion. All right, so the Texans, they did a good job at re-signing Danielle Hunter, right? No. Cam Robinson, they brought in a tackle. They waived a few players. They brought in Ronald Darby as their corner. Derek Stingley, they just gave a massive deal. Christian Kirk at wide receiver. Man, they the bunch of movement going in Texas. Bunch of movement. Laken Tomlinson as a guard. I mean, he's just a nobody. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson traded to Houston. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. It's almost impossible to kind of figure out where the Texans are going because they've done a lot. They've done a lot of movement. If I'm going to follow suit with anybody, wide receiver and offensive line makes a ton of sense here. Let's take a look at their depth chart. You want to protect your quarterback, number one. And when we look at, let's see, right tackle, Blake Fisher, Juice Scruggs at right guard, Jarrett Patterson at center, Laken Tomlinson at left guard is just not exciting at all. Cam Robinson at left tackle is good, but Blake Fisher? Blake Fisher is about as terrible as they come on the right side. So if you're going to do anything, you take an offensive tackle at the end of the first round. You've got Calvin Banks, Gray Zabel, Josh Connerly. If you want a true right tackle, it's not Connerly because he plays left tackle, as you can see, right? So it's not Connerly. How about Calvin Banks? Oh, he's a left tackle. That's not going to work. How about Gray Zabel? Oh, he played left tackle, left guard. Oh, look at that. Played a lot of right tackle in 23 and 22. He moved to left tackle last year where he was absolutely elite. Elite. Now in 23 and 22, he was good at right tackle, but he was elite at left tackle. But he also played a little bit of guard in 22 and 23 as well. So we don't know if his guard numbers is what pulled him down. I think that Gray is obviously going to be a left tackle. He could convert to right. He's comfortable there. He could convert. Donovan Jackson, left tackle, left guard. So if I'm looking again, Laken Tomlinson doesn't make a lot of sense to me here for the future. So do you bring in a left guard that also has some ability to play left tackle? I think so. I absolutely think so. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. Again, are they willing to try to convert one of these guys over to the right side? Possibly. So let's just roll with it. I think that Calvin Banks would probably make a lot of sense. See ya. How about those Rams? What the Rams do this year? Kella Witherspoon, Nathan Landman, Ronnie Rivers. Bunch of no-namers. They lost Cooper. You got Pooh Ford, Jimmy G. They brought in Devontae Adams. Huge move. Signed Tutu Atwell. Stafford is sticking around. They also held on to Lyric Jackson. Rams defense is well on its way with Braden Fisk, Jared Verse leading the charge, Kobe Turner, Byron Young. If they're weak anywhere, I would say it's going to be in the DB room on the defense. If they're weak anywhere. Tyler Davis at nose tackle could also be upgraded. He had pretty solid season last year. Like really solid season. Yeah, probably leave him there. I don't think it makes sense to move off of him. He had a really good year. They definitely need a backup behind Braden Fisk. They just don't have a lot of defensive ends on the left side. So I could see him going defensive end here to kind of stack behind these guys. You might even see them take a wide receiver here. I mean, they have Tutu Atwell, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. Quintez Cephas, wow, he's still around. That's craziness. Man, you can almost just do whatever you want right now with them. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum. I mean, they're set for running back. They're set at quarterback right now for this season. You could go tight end. I mean, Tyler Higbee's good. Colby Parkinson was good. I think defensive line makes a lot of sense here only because they're kind of missing a guy behind Braden Fisk right now at left defensive end. So let's chalk one up to, yeah, this is where you're going to see, we'll go Demetrius Knight. We're going to go linebacker. You're going to fill in behind Jared Verse, Omar Spates, Nate Landman. Stack it up. Demetrius Knight's gone. How about the Ravens? We're almost there. We're almost there, and then I'll be done. Ravens didn't do as much as I thought they would do, but they brought in Marlon Humphrey at corner. You know, I want to take a look at some. What did Daniel Jeremiah give the Rams? He gave him Trey Amos. Look at that. I guess you could have went corner there. Could have went corner there. What did the other guy give him? Azare Thomas, corner. And Gray Zabel. I don't think anyone gave him a linebacker / edge but me. Nope, Jod Campbell. So someone is thinking linebacker edge. All right. Ravens. Looks like they could probably use offensive line. Someone that's going to be able to move. Move that pocket. Or contain the pocket. Or defensive line. Guard, edge, or DB. So a lot of edge still available. A lot of defensive line still available. Man, Nick Scourton makes a lot of sense here. Derek Harmon makes a lot of sense here. But they need a guard. In Gray Zabel, there's no way that he's going to last this long. I would not take a guard. I would take a converted tackle. I would not take a guard here. I think that would be a waste of a pick. I mean, Tyler Booker is good, but is he good at, moving up 20 spots? I don't think so. Possibly. There's always a guard that seems to go in the first round. But at DB, let's look at their DB room. All right. So they have Kyle Hamilton at safety, Darius Washington at safety, TJ Tampa from last year at right corner, Marlon Humphrey at nickel, and Jalen Armour Davis at left corner. And then Nate Wiggins behind him. No, Nate Wiggins is the starter. Has to be. So I think that their DB room is good. It's just weak as far as depth. They don't have a ton of depth right now. I think that they could definitely use some upgrades in the linebacker room. When you look at this room, it's kind of old, right? Kyle Van Noy has been around forever. He's 33 years old. So at the will linebacker position, I think that if we have any, there's really no solid linebackers left right now. What defense do they run? They run a 3-4. Nick's not going to do it. TJ's not going to do it. Yep, not a whole lot for linebackers available. I think that if you're going to go DB, you got strong safety Kyle Hamilton, Darius Washington at free safety. Those are both pretty good dudes. But at nickel, Marlon Humphrey, how old is he? He's 28. He's pretty solid. One of the better nickels in the league. Would you take a swing at Nick Emenawari? I understand he's a little bit small to play linebacker, but at 6'3", 227, I mean, could this guy add 10 pounds, 15 pounds? I mean, he's extremely fast, right? I mean, he can be a small linebacker for sure and cover like crazy. I think he can get it done. I think the Ravens are going to take a big swing here and take Nick Emenawari. All right, Lions are back on the board. And you could go any way with this right now. I think you could go offensive line for the future. You could take Gray Zabel. I think you could go defensive line of the future and take Derek Harmon. I'm not as high on Harmon. I'm just not. I'll tell you why in a second. So Derek Harmon. Oh shoot, I don't have the rest of his numbers in front of me. Anyway, Derek Harmon's got 34 and 3/8 inch arms, plenty long arms, right? The dude is going to be able to maintain distance, at the offensive line and be able to use that length to his benefit. Walter Nolan, even though he's the most polished, and I sent him early, that was probably a mistake. Him and Mason Graham both have very short arms at 32 and a half inch arms, very short. Kenneth Grant at 33 and a half. That's like the minimum that I like to see. 33 and a quarter, 33 and a half. Tyleik Williams, I really liked him, at the combine, but 32 inch arms, I'm probably not going to take him in the first round, probably later. Joshua Farmer, this guy, you want to talk about elite measurables. And again, you can grab this guy later. He's not a first rounder, but 10 and a quarter inch hands. He's 6'3" and 1/4, so he's right at that borderline height. 305 pounds, 35 inch arms, 83 and 3/8 inch wing, 1.11 APE score. He's got the second 1.11 in this draft, and he's the second defensive lineman to have it. The other one is Darius Alexander. And I think that Darius has proven enough, and this is a Brad Holmes kind of guy, but at 6'4", he's got good size, 310. He was only a 2-star recruit and received only 2 Division I offers. He redshirted his first year. He was rotational lineman for the next 4 seasons before earning a full-time starting spot in 23 and 24. Ideal size, just under 6'4", 305, 34-inch arms. This build gives him the potential to play at 3 technique or 3-4 defensive end in the NFL for odd or even fronts. Brad Holmes loves versatility. I'm not saying put him at end, but there's always that option there. You still have Nick Scourton on the board. You have Alec Iomanor, which the Lions could definitely use a receiver that is 6'2", 210, right? They could take place of that Tim Patrick after Tim Patrick leaves next season. TJ Sanders is one of my favorite defensive linemen in the draft. 6'4", he's a little bit light at 290. He kind of reminds me of that Ali McNeil. He definitely has a knack for shooting those gaps and getting to the passer. I really like him. I would not be afraid of taking him right here. TJ Sanders, let's take a look at his length on my list. Where is he? There he is. TJ, 10.25-inch arms, 6'3" and like 7/8, 297 pounds is what he weighed in at. 33 and 3/8-inch arms, 80.8 wingspan, 1.07 ape score. So he fits, right? He's exactly a Lee McNeil to me. That's just what he reminds me of. But the Lions don't have a DJ Reader, right? Unless Broderick Martin steps up, we don't have a DJ Reader next year. I don't think we double down on edge. I know a lot of people have been saying that. I don't think we do. I absolutely don't think we do. I don't think that Brad would do that. I mean, I think that you could, but then you're going to have 2 first-round picks at edge with Aiden, which would be insane. You know, Brad said, hey, I'd love to have 2, 3, 4 of these guys. You essentially could do it in this draft. And then, yeah, you have 3 edge rushers for the next 5 years, you know, together. Incredible rotation. Absolutely. You could do it. I just don't think he's going to. I think that he's going to end up taking a defensive lineman to back up DJ Reader. Now it's going to be hard, right, between DJ Reader and DJ Reed to keep those guys straight. But what about a safety? I mean, what about Landon Jackson? I would love to see Landon Jackson. What about Maxwell Hairston if he's still on the board, taking another corner? I mean, that would kind of be a wasted pick in my opinion because you've got DJ Reed and Terry Arnold. But you can never have enough, right? You can never have enough. What about taking a wide receiver? Probably a wasted pick. All right, so Derek Harmon. Great size. Definitely has the elite ability. 3 technique is where they have him for an even front, right? So 4-3 is where he fits. 4-3 is where he fits. B gap guys is what we're looking for. We're looking for B gap guys right now. And that's what we have. So he's a B gap guy. Who else is on the board? Okay, we have Darius Alexander. Where did he line up last year? Oh, he's a B gap guy. I think he makes a lot of sense. All right, who did Brad meet with? All right, let's look at the interview tracker real quick. Or I'm going to look at it real quick. And looking at defensive line. Oh, boy. Why don't I see it? Why don't I see where he's met with anybody? I don't see anyone that he's met with. Am I missing something here? He hasn't met with Darius Alexander. He hasn't met with Derek Harmon. He hasn't met with any of these guys? No, that can't be. He met with Deion Walker, which I would run away from in a heartbeat. I would not do anything with Deion Walker. He met with CJ West. Sona Toya. Who's that? Okay. All right, then we got to think about the right guard situation or left guard situation of the future. We also have to think about left tackle situation of the future, right? What about when does Taylor Decker get sat down, right? When does he get sat down? So you have a pure left tackle here in Gray Zabel. And at 6'6", 305, this is hard to walk away from. It really is. I think that if Brad is going to be smart to, or if he's smart enough to move up and somehow maintain his both, picks at 20 and 28, I don't think he takes 2 players on the same side of the football. I think what he does is he moves back up into the 2nd and 3rd round somehow. But it's Gray Zabel that he takes. You now are set for the future. You don't know what you have in Manu, and I know it's a risk right now because Manu could be the guy, but we don't know what we don't know. This is going to change when we get to the draft or just before the draft. When my final comes out, I think I'll have enough information to get close. But I don't think you walk away from a generational talent like Gray Zabel. I don't think you walk away from a generational talent like Shamar Stewart. I don't. I don't think that you do. I think that'd be an unwise decision. And now you can do whatever you want with Taylor Decker. Maybe you trade Taylor Decker on draft day. I don't know. Maybe you trade him the next year. Maybe you just release him and he retires. He's at that age too where he could just retire. I think the Commanders are going to take Will Johnson. I think the Bills definitely would not walk away from Derek Harmon. And I think that the Kansas City Chiefs want to make sure that their quarterback is good. So Josh Connerly makes a lot of sense. And then Eagles. Shamar Stewart was quoted or mocked here a lot. I don't think that Shamar Stewart is going to last till pick 32. But I do think that Nick Scourton will be gone. I think that he's gone in the first round. You still have some really good football players here that could have went anywhere. Matthew Golden probably would have went earlier. Omarion Hampton, the second running back, could possibly go in the first round. Colston Loveland, I'm borderline with him not going to the Bolts. I think that makes a lot of sense. He could go to Indianapolis. Alec Ionamore, he might jump. He might jump over top a couple of receivers. We have a lot of pro days in front of us, right? And this is where a lot of this is going to change. This is all going to change again once we get the rest of the numbers. Right now, this is purely on needs analysis. And needs and best player available are different. I'm kind of doing a little bit of both because I don't know everything about these teams other than what I see on the depth chart, what they've done in free agency, and kind of, a little bit of memory of what they did last year. So what do you guys think of the trade up? See, I think the trade up puts us in a box. I really do. I think the trade up puts us in a box. I think that you trade back. The only problem with that is, can you somehow stay in the first round? Like, is there a team that's willing to move up just 4 picks or, 2 picks or 3 picks? I doubt it. There would have to be somebody there that they really want that you don't want. Who would that be? At the end of the day, let's look who I took. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, Membu, Graham, Genty, McMillan, Burden, Campbell, Malachi Starks, Jade Barron, Egbuka, Josh Simmons, Pierce, Walker, Nolan. So Nolan, he could drop, right? I think that Nolan and Alexander, they could flip-flop because Nolan's got a little bit of shorter arms. Will Campbell, I'm not high on him at all. I'm just not. I know he's a great football player. I know he's a good offensive lineman. The arm thing is just, he'll be a guard. All right, that's why I gave him to the Bengals. Mike Green, who knows? Azaraku, Shamar Stewart. I think all of these guys fit into the first round. All of these guys fit into the first round. You can't go wrong with any of those guys. And then the fact that you're starting the second round with all of these guys, come on. This is why the Lions need to have and stack. Somehow, they need to get multiple picks inside the top 60. We need 3 picks inside the top 60. Even going to 60 right now, there's 3 guys that I would take. I would take Jared Ivey. I would take Elijah Aurora, even though we don't need another tight end. I would take him. I would take Jaden Higgins in a heartbeat. I would take Jaden Higgins. I would take Princely, even though he's a little bit raw. His measurables and everything else are great. Landon Jackson, I would take. Maxwell Hairston, I would take. Alec Ionamore, you can't walk away from that guy if you're staring him down. You just can't. He's too good. So the first 2 rounds are deep. The Lions need to somehow add an extra pick between 28 and 60. And if they can get it in the top 40, this might be the best draft of Brad Holmes' career just yet. What about Mike Green? He's gone. So Mike Green is, what did I put in? 15, 16, 17? Mike Green went 18 to the Seahawks. Just don't know about Mike Green. You know, he's got these legal issues that I think he's still dealing with. I don't know, alleged legal issues. We just don't know what we don't know. But anyway, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go relax. We got one more day tomorrow to do the morning show. Plenty of stuff left to get to this week. Plenty of action still left to be had before the draft. Plenty of mock drafts to do between now and the end of April. So you guys have a wonderful night. Thanks you for joining me. I'll fix this stupid feed stuff that's going on tonight as soon as we get off. You guys have an interesting night? Yeah. Or I'm sorry, Ornery Evam Dad said interesting draft. Yeah, it is. But my best draft is always my last draft. Always. That's where all the research gets poured into. So we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Take care. Go in pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.